It's me, Car. I am a 3L and also a law student mentor, so I do hope everyone is doing well out there today. And before this month goes by, I want to say Happy Black History Month to all African American people out there. To celebrate, what we will do is go over a book summary, and the book that I want us to go over that I actually read is this one. It's called March 1. Well, March Book 1, and it's by Congressman John Lewis. So we're going to actually review book 1 today. Let me say before I get into this book summary that it is 2022, and I know that. And so when I read books of this nature where it talks about civil rights and race relations of the past, I do get angst and angry because I'm just like, it's just so crazy at how people thought, but that is how people thought. So this takes place on January 20th, 2009, which is the inauguration day of former President Barack Obama. And so we see everyone just trying to get ready to go to this inauguration. Oh, that's a hard word for me to say. And Congressman Lewis is so nice. I mean, he has people at his office and they want to talk to him, they want to see him, they want to converse with him, and he actually wants to converse with them too. So he takes his time and he tells this story, and this story is his flashback to his childhood in the 1940s and how he grew up in rural Alabama where he was raising chickens, and how he wanted to be a preacher. And because he wanted to be a preacher, he would preach sermons to his chickens. He would baptize them and bury them and just all that stuff like that. And it's just so precious about how he was just as a young boy, him and his chickens. Like, he loved his chickens. And he talked about how back in the day, back in the rural South, where you had a lot of land, if you were going to school and you also need to take care of like the family and the land, children had hard decisions to make. Like, parents had hard decisions to make. They want, to be able to eat, to be able to pick the cotton or do whatever they need to do, but yet the children also need to go to school. And so what John Lewis would do is he would go and hide. So whenever they would be ready to go work the land or whatever it was that they did to make money or to take care of the property, he would always go and hide. And just as soon as the school bus would stop, he would hop on the school bus. And then he tells us how he was laying in bed one night, or he was just with his family listening to the radio, and he heard Martin Luther King Jr. speak, and how the words of Dr. King birthed something into him. And he was just so mesmerized by it, where he felt as if Dr. King and him were just having a one-on-one conversation. And so the next day at school, he's like, I want to learn everything I can about this man. And so he's trying to find articles and everything he can about Dr. King. And then he takes us over the incidents that led us into the civil rights, the death of Emmett Till, and how Miss Rosa Parks, she didn't move to the back of the bus. And those were the incidents that led up to civil rights as many of us know it. And he also shared his first sermon where he was preaching, and then it was shown in the newspaper during that time, and they called him the boy preacher, which I think was pretty cool. And so that was like the first part where you get to learn a lot about John Lewis's history, about his upbringing, about what life was like in rural Alabama. The history that we have is not really that far as we think it is. Like, these are our grandparents, maybe our parents in a sense that actually experienced these things. And so then Congressman Lewis and the other authors, because there are 2 additional authors with this book, they take us back to Inauguration Day, and these the constituents are like, they have more questions for him, and they want to ask him more and more questions. They talk about his education. And so Congressman Lewis talks about how he wanted to go to college and how he ended up going to college in Nashville. And with this exposition of his background, we're back in like late 1950s, early 1960s, where he's roughly about college age, like right becoming an adult. And he's actually been corresponding with Dr. King, and he meets Dr. King, and this sort of situation is like way more than what Congressman Lewis thought. Like, he didn't realize the gravity of wanting to make a change in civil rights during this time. And Dr. King and the other attorneys that are there and the people that are with Dr. King are informing Congressman Lewis. He wasn't a congressman at this time, but they're informing him like the gravity of it. Like, civil rights is not what you think. You just can't go and like change the day. Like, people will be hurt. Like, your parents may lose their jobs. Like, your whole livelihood would change if you really want to go down this particular route, because they wanted him to start like a lawsuit or something like that. He was too young. His parents would need to be able to sign for him because he wasn't an adult. And at that point, Congressman Lewis, like the weight of the reality set in. And so he went home. And this is my interpretation of this book. He went home and he thought about it and was like, this is not, I'm not ready for this. Like, he grew up with chickens, like, now he has to like sue people, and like his parents, like their livelihood could be at stake. Like his whole family is involved, and that's something that's really difficult for a young adult or a teenager. And so he tells Dr. King, actually, I'll just go to school in Nashville. Like that's where I'll go instead. And when he's at school, the exposition of this, or his narrative, tells us that he went to a non-violent seminar. He was like just listening to someone, and they wanted him to go to a non-violent workshop with Jim Lawson at this time. And at these workshops, I didn't realize that you had these people, black, white, whatever color they were trying to pretend, like in a sense, method acting this hatred of what they've experienced in the South on each other, just to prepare each other for the hatred that they would receive. And so, because everything was nonviolence, and so they were putting on the caricature or the reality of how these racist white people were. And that's what they did to each other. They would call each other racial slurs. They would throw milk at each other. They would abuse each other in a simulated environment, so that when they got to the real environment, they would know how to act. They would know how to be, like, they would know how to perform in that environment in a non-violent way. And I know it's really hard to say that, to perform it, but that's like the best way to explain it. They would know how to behave, which is also a horrible word, in these simulated environments. They wouldn't let those people who hated them get the best of them by also making them hate them back. And we'll go into that a little later. And he talks about how some students left because nonviolent is really hard. And I know for me, like, if someone's like punching me, like, I'm gonna punch back. But for them, like, nonviolence is the way. So you do not react to violence with violence. You react to violence with love. And that's what they were teaching them. But not only like to love their attackers and the people who hated them, but to also disarm them, how to protect themselves, and mainly how to survive, which is really weird for me to understand that in 2022, here I am, I can go to a restaurant, I can go anywhere. But back in the 50s and the 60s, like, how do you survive going to a restaurant? You're going to a restaurant and you need to survive that. And so it's the weight of that makes a lot of students just not want to continue the movement of nonviolence. And so in a sense, like, you can't really blame them. I did not know what a lunch counter was, so this was something that I had to actually look up, because to me, like, it was like a lunch counter is like a restaurant, but reality it's not. And so I guess back in the day, back in the 40s and 50s, you would have these department stores where they would have like impulse buy, like little restaurants, almost like what you see with Starbucks. Like, you have the Starbucks and Targets, or like little restaurants that you kind of see in like the Walmarts or whatever, but department stores would have them. And so it'd almost be like an impulse buy, like, oh, let's go have lunch at this nearest department store, and then while you're there, you can also do some shopping. So it's just a way for department stores to get extra revenue. And what they would do is they would go buy something from the department store. The students who did the nonviolence workshop, they would go buy something from the department store and just go and sit at the lunch counters and just sit there. And they would be considered themselves, they're like, I'm a paying customer because I bought something from this store. I deserve the right to sit. And at first they are just sitting there, and it's causing havoc and chaos just sitting there, and which is hard to believe. I mean, because we take advantage of that all day. I mean, now if you do go in and sit down at a restaurant, like, you sit and you expect to have food, you expect to have drinks, you expect to have a good time, for it to be social if you're there with people. But these people are just like, we're just gonna sit and see what it's like, and there's havoc and chaos and animosity from just sitting at a lunch counter. And so we're back at Inauguration Day, and that's the cool part about this book, is that he does bring us back to the Inauguration Day, and we're about to start, and Congressman Lewis just needs to actually get outside the doors to the inauguration, and he's just like, no, there's still more that needs to be. I need to say this, I need to say that. And one of his aides, and it's such a funny part, in the book where it's like, it's freezing out there. It's January in DC. Like, you need a scarf. You need something. It's just cold. And Congressman Lewis is just basically saying, I don't need this scarf. I remember back in the day, you know how old people can be. Like, back in the day, I walked up and down to school, both heels in the snow and the sleet and like whatever. They're just trying to like downplay present because they had such a horrible past. Like, I don't know why old people do that, but that's what he was doing. He was like, I don't need no scarf. I was able to handle the lunch counter sit-ins in the cold of Nashville. And then we go back into the cold of Nashville, and he talks about the students sitting at the lunch counter, and they have a list of do's and don'ts when they go to these lunch counters. Like, they just have rules that they have to follow, and I want to go over just some of the rules. So the things that they cannot do are: do not strike back or curse if abused. So they're supposed to just take the beatings. They're supposed to take the verbal assaults. They are not to retaliate back at all, which is really difficult and really hard to do, especially in today's time. Like in 2022, you hear people fighting all the time, like not even over words, just like basic stuff people are fighting about. And then for the second rule is do not laugh out. Like, oh, I don't think I can make it. Like, not trying to make light of this, but I love, like, everything I do is with laughing. Like, job resumes, I like to laugh. Dating apps, laughing all the time. And so, like, I even laugh when I'm afraid. Laughing is just like my survival mechanism. So to know that you can't laugh out, it's mind boggling. Like, you are supposed to just take the way that they treat you, not laugh, not ridicule them, and just be okay with it and show them love in return. It's such a hard thing to do. It's hard to think about it in theory, and it's hard to do it in practice. You can't leave your seat until your leader has given you permission to do so. So you're just supposed to sit there and just, while these people are just so mean and so full of hate, just attacking you just for no reason because you look different. It's mind-boggling at how strong and courageous like these people were. And these were people who were 18, 19, like they were students, young college people like you who are watching this video most likely. And it's just incredible, like the strength that they had. And we don't, in a sense, like sometimes we take it for granted that they had to go through such turmoil in Hades just for us to get to where we are today. And then they cannot block entrances to the stores outside or the aisles inside. So like they had to even leave like a clear path. I mean, if it was me and someone's being like disrespectful or hateful to me, I mean, man, like I cannot say that I would not tear up a restaurant. That is not beneath me at all. Like I will, I mean, if you push me hard enough, like I will destroy everything, and would not think twice about it. So these are the things that they are supposed to do. Show yourself friendly and courteous at all times. Show yourself friendly and courteous. You have someone in your face. You're supposed to smile it off. Be friendly and be courteous. Sit straight. Always face the counter. Like even their posture had to exude confidence and that they were in control all the time, even down to their posture. Report all serious incidents to your leader. I mean, at this point, like in some of the pages of this graphic novel, you see like there are fights everywhere. Bodies are everywhere. You're supposed to report it to your leader. Refer information seekers to your leader in a polite manner. I mean, people who want to know, like, what are you doing? Go talk to the leader. Like, don't talk to me. My goal right here is just to sit here and to be present and to let these people know that, hey, we are not afraid of you. We're just like you. We are hungry. We just want to sit at these lunch counters and eat. And number 5 is my favorite. Remember the teachings of Jesus Christ, Mahatma Gandhi, and Martin Luther King. Love and nonviolence is the way. And at the very end, it says, may God bless each of you. It's almost like they're on this journey individually, but collectively to go sit and to desegregate these restaurants and lunch counters in Nashville. They all go to jail, and you hear about people going to jail, and there's this huge uproar, this huge like issues about them being in jail, and they have to pay. It's just a mess. Like, first off, you're already abused by people, right? And then on top of that, you get thrown in jail after you've been beaten and bloody and hurt and spat on and all this other stuff. Then you have to go to jail, and it's just in a sense, like, it's a lot that they go through. It is a lot that they go through. And then after they're out of jail and all of that happens, and I'm not going to go into that detail, one of their members, their home is bombed. This is the part of the book that is the most frustrating for me, because they go to the mayor, and this is Mayor West at the time. Mayor West tells the people He tells, because at this point there's that bombing, so all the black people in Nashville, they are ready to tear up the city. And he's just like, listen, like, you guys have the power to destroy the entire city. Which blows my mind is that he recognizes the fact that segregation is wrong. He tells them, don't bring any mobs. I will do my best to make sure that, you know, the laws are followed and that this prejudice ends peacefully. And it's just mind-boggling to me, because it's like, you know that this is wrong, and yet you know that this group of people have the power to change it. He will do his best to, you know, make sure the laws change, you know, peacefully and without prejudice. But he can't make restaurant owners serve black people. That's what he tells them. And he's just like, oh, Mayor West, according to this narrative here, why don't we pray together? And the people are like, forget praying. We just want to eat together. They're just trying to have lunch. Like, literally, these people are just trying to go get a hamburger at a restaurant. They don't even care who they're sitting by. They just want to be able to be served and treated with respect. And so it's just mind-boggling that the mayor knew that at that time. Like, he knew that segregation was wrong. But yet, because of politicalness and all this other stuff that goes into it, that I don't understand, or that I hope not to ever understand, he's just like, you know, yeah, you're right, but I can't do this. When technically he can. All he had to do was go tell those restaurant owners, like, y'all, like, be nice. But no, that's not what he did. That's not what happened. And so the way this book ends, it just ends with them going to another lunch counter. They're still trying it again. They keep trying it and they keep trying it. And you hear the words of Martin Luther King basically telling them not to give up, to continue the fight. And so that's pretty much how this book ends. And we'll just bring it back into 2022. Of course, anyone, for the most part, yeah, we can all sit at lunch counters. We don't have to worry about that now. Thank God I was born during the time I was born, because I don't think I would have made it. Like, nonviolence, when you hear it, you think it's just, oh, it's simple, like, be nonviolent. But no, like, they practice in simulated environments of hating each other. Like, they went out of their way to say things that were derogatory, that were hateful, just so that they would know how to act when it happened in reality, which is such a difficult thing for me to, like, comprehend. Should you read this book? Yes, I think you should read it. I even think people in high school should read it. It's a graphic novel, so it's almost like a comic book. Like, why should you read this book? This is the narrative of Congressman John Lewis, about how he grew up, and about, you know, from his childhood to his early 20s, like, as a college student. And I think that most people who watch this channel or watch my videos, I do appreciate you, but I assume that you are that age, like, you are young college people, or you know someone that is like a young college person, or you have been a college person yourself. It is in black and white, which I thought was interesting. It's a very beautiful cover, but it's all black and white. And me, normally, I like to read comic books that have color in them. I'm not a fan of all the black and white, but because it is black and white, it forces you to pay attention to the story, which is the most important thing. And the whole point of this story is that black people want to sit at lunch counters. Like, we want to desegregate lunch counters, restaurants, things like that. And so it's really good in that sense. And just the way that it's written and just the illustrations of it just make it so good to read. So that's why I think anyone should read it. I think you should read it. And so that's it. This is my summary of the book March 1, or March Book 1, I should say. That's the way it's titled. By Congressman Lewis. It's by Congressman Lewis, Andrew Aiden, so sorry if I mispronounce it, and Nat Powell. And thank you for listening and watching, and thanks for celebrating Black History Month with me. So we just have a few days left, but I just want to say that I appreciate all of you and that I love all of you. So take care.